Okay, so today we are going to do some walking patterns that are focused on hip flexion. So hip flexion is how your leg comes up towards you. So you will need a wall. I'm sure you have a wall somewhere near you. And then let's also have like a weight or a ball or something that you can have in your hand. So I'm just going to grab a weight. I'm going to grab, I have weights over here. So I'm going to grab a 10-pound weight, but you definitely don't even need anything heavier than a pound. It's just the closest, least heavy weight available to me. Okay, so first I want to just break down a little bit of the movement that we have when we walk, which is where you step forward on one leg, your other leg, your knee bends, your hip flexes. Notice that I'm not you don't have to have your leg way up here. But for strengthening those muscles and that connection, we're going to do your leg way up here. And then that leg would extend straight. And then you would step onto that leg, and then the back leg bends and the hip flexes, and then it would come forward and you would take a big step forward. So you're not going to find that you do that level of hip flexion unless you're walking somewhere where you're stepping over stuff or you're stepping on stairs. But I think that not having like that good hip flexion is sometimes the reason that we trip. So I wanted to just kind of focus on that today. This is annoying me, so I'm going to move it. So you can hold on to, again, the wall, you can hold on to a pole, you can hold on to a piece of furniture. And we're not gonna do the step forward yet. We're just gonna work on sort of the hip flexion. So inside leg to the wall is gonna be a little bit on the soft side. And you're gonna start with that little bit of hip hinge that if you know me, you know I love. So you have your leg, you have your outside leg behind you. So for me, that's my right leg. So I'm gonna start to bring that leg through so that my knee is coming towards me. Now go ahead, if you can, flex your foot at the same time, because those motions of hip flexion and dorsiflexion happen together. And then let's go ahead and just stand up taller with that leg. So we went from our hip hinge to more of an upright posture. And then see if you can then extend your leg straight. You're going to let that leg kind of, might need to bend it a little bit because, sometimes your legs are small. So that you send it back behind you, and we're going back to that little bend in the standing leg. So again, you take the back leg, bend it, stand it up, reach it forward, and then we're just going to try to tip as we take it back. Now, I'm just basically looking down at the floor right now. As I bend my knee forward, I'm still looking down at the floor. As I stand up, I kind of trace with my eyes on the floor till my eyes are looking forward. And then I'm going to lift my outside knee up as high as I can because I want to just work on the muscles and kind of the mind-body connection there. I'm going to extend my leg forward and then reach it back. So my left leg is my leg that likes to hyperextend. So I have to be really careful when I go to be straighter with this leg that it just doesn't like slam back. So for me, when I'm coming up, I'm trying to like push forward with my hips more than I'm trying to straighten my leg. So think about it as it's hip extension on one side and hip flexion on the other side as you're coming up. Reach your leg through and then tipping down towards the floor. Bending your knee, pushing forward with your hips. That can help not hyperextend your knee if you have that little bend in your knee. And then your leg goes forward, and then you reach it back. Again, going through, push forward with your hips, reach forward with your leg, and then go ahead and push it back. Now we're going to add a couple of other things that are just more specific to what happens when you walk. If you were walking perfectly, which hardly any of us do. So your back leg is actually going to come through an internal rotation. So what we're going to do is if your toes are on the floor of your back leg, we're going to roll from your hip so that your right, so on my right leg, my right knee is going to face towards the left. So that's internal leg rotation. If I was rotating my legs so that my knee's out to the side, that's external rotation. So we're going to be an internal rotation. And then when your leg comes forward, you'll notice your knee is at an angle that's slightly to the left, and your foot is at an angle that's slightly to the right. And then you stand up, and then when you extend your leg, you actually take it into a little bit of external rotation, which is where your foot is a little bit out, and then you reach forward. And then you internally rotate, pull it through, stand it up, externally rotate a little bit as you're taking it through. And I'm trying to speed it up a little bit. And you probably might notice that your standing leg, your hip of your standing leg might start to feel like it's talking to you a little bit. Because that's another thing that kind of has to happen when we walk, is that your standing leg needs to be strong enough to stabilize you as you step through. So if I'm stepping on my left leg, it needs to be strong enough for me to be standing on it until I step on my right leg, which then needs to be strong enough for me to carry through on my left leg. So we're going to add one last thing to what we were doing here. So we had added to that hip extension, hip flexion kind of pattern, the internal rotation to standing up to the external rotation, but I want to go from the internal rotation to standing up to really pushing your hip that's closer to the wall out a little bit and shortening your waist. That's the leg that you're lifting up. So that actually creates more space for your leg to come through. So you might notice, like if your leg was getting caught on the floor as it was going back, we're kind of just changing that idea. So again, we go through, stand it up, push your hip away from the wall. You can shorten your waist on the front leg side, and then you go back. And let's do that one more time. Leg goes through, stand it up, push into one hip, shorten the other side waist, and then go through. So we're gonna do the whole thing on the other side. So I just have to turn around. I'm also like, where did I put my phone? Which was my clock, so I know how long we're gonna do this. Okay, so same concept. So we have the one leg back. We're not doing internal, external here. We're just gonna do a little hip hinge, and then you're gonna pull your knee through, push forward with your hips, extend your leg, and then reach that leg back. So it's my foot drop leg, so it's kind of driving on the floor, which is just what it's doing. So we're going to be fine with that. We'll stand it up, reach it through, and back. Pull your knee forward, stand it up, extend it, and back. Pulling through, standing up, see if maybe you can lift your knee up a little bit higher, reach it through, and push it back. Bending your knee, pushing forward with your opposite hip, reach your leg, and back. Pulling forward, standing up, reach your leg, and then reach it back as you tip forward. Like I said before, with my eyes, I'm looking down at the floor. My knee bends and I'm still looking down at the floor, and then I kind of trace with my eyes to where my eyes just end up when I'm standing up, and then I trace back down as I'm going forward. Coming through and back. And to come through, really get that knee up high if you can, reach it forward, and push it back. Now we're going to do the internal rotation of the standing leg. This is my left leg, which means I'm going to rotate it from the hip so that my knee is facing my other knee. And then when I pull it through, it almost goes across my body a little bit. And then I'll stand it up, reach it forward, slight external rotation, so my toes are facing to the left, and then come forward. Bending it, lifting it up, extending forward, and reaching back. Bend in that slight internal rotation. Reach it forward, slight external rotation, and taking it back. Now my foot's really kind of dragging on the floor here because I just don't have enough dorsiflexion because of foot drop to not have my foot drop. So one way I can get around that is if I shorten my waist on this side when I lift my leg up, so if my waist kind of comes shorter, and then my hip on the standing leg comes in. So I'm just turning this way so you can see what would happen there. So same concept that we had before. So we're internally rotating the standing leg, bending it through, standing up. So here, I want to push into my standing leg, and I want to kind of do a little bit of a crunch into my lifting leg. And I'll push my leg through. And so you see how it's got more space. It doesn't completely clear the floor, but it's got a little bit more space. So I'm internally rotating, bend my leg through, stand it up, push with my hip, and I'm doing a little side crunch. You can also do a little twist towards that leg, extend it, and then we'll send it through. And like there's 10 million things to think about that are involved in walking. And when I'm having trouble walking, I will only try to think of like one thing at a time because it's just too much to think about all the things that could be wrong or you could do better. So, but practicing all the different pieces eventually does kind of put it together in a way that makes it easier to walk, especially if you find that kind of secret thing that is the thing that for you makes it better. So when I'm standing up, my little crunch, my hips are going in, my leg is going forward, and then I'm following on the floor until it goes back. Okay, but that's not stepping. So let's now do it where we're going to step. And I don't want it to be like that super exaggerated thing where we're doing like a big knee flexion and a big whatever. We're just gonna do steps where ideally what's happening is we're gonna add a weight, and then that weight is gonna help us feel like the desire to step forward and then a desire to step forward in the other direction. Because the rotation of your thoracic spine can be really useful in getting kind of the motion going. So you're gonna start with your legs. Let's do right leg forward, left leg back, and then you have a weight in your arms. And like I said, it could be a pound, it could be like a can of beans or something. And then you're just going to start with a little twist from side to side. And you're trying to keep your standing leg basically still, and your back leg also basically still. And this is just challenging balance for one. It's also challenging the outer hip of the front leg to be working. That's why I like to have a little hip hinge here, which means I'm just a little bit folded forward, but not rounded forward with my back. Now, the next time, so if I'm towards the right, when I come towards the left, I want to push my hips forward and take a step. So now the weight is going to be on the left side. And then you can keep going, and you do a twist and step forward, you do a twist and step forward, you do a twist and step forward. You can also kind of really practice with your balance by doing forward back steps. So if I'm twisted towards the right, I step towards the left, I step back. I step to the left, and I step back. And this is training that idea that that leg needs to be strong enough to take you forward as you're doing the other things, which is hip flexion. And then we're adding that kind of rotation, but also stabilizing through that standing leg. So if you're wondering what you can do with your eyes, I kind of like to look a little bit in the distance, kind of where I'm stepping towards, because I know I have a big tendency to just look down because the world is full of tripping hazards. But if I look a little bit forward, I actually find that my walking has been a little better, and I said that as I was kind of losing my balance a little bit. So we're doing that little swing to step, and a little swing to step, and a little swing to step. So now we'll do the other leg. So then the left leg will be the forward leg. The right leg will be the back leg. So sort of like we did before, where you're pushing your hip away from the wall of your standing leg. I'm pushing my hip away a little bit, which is just basically that I'm not sinking into my standing leg. And then I'm just going to try not to fall and work on a little twist. Now, if you feel like this feels like really unstable to you, you can absolutely hold on to the wall, and then I would still hold something in your arms and do like a little rotation and still, look away from you. And then when you take a step, it just kind of goes to the side. And when you step back, it goes towards the standing leg. But you can also take it into a step. A step, the weight always goes over the front leg. Your head also goes over your front leg, because that's just for balance. You can walk backwards. I, again, like to do, I think for balance and just kind of training a pattern, I just like to stay in essentially one space. But I also always like to take a walk after I do something, just to basically see, did the thing that I did actually improve my walking? So we're going to take it for a test drive. So go ahead, and if you have a weight, put it down. I always like to mentally kind of take a break, and then I'm just going to take a little walk around and see kind of how I feel. And that actually feels better than before. Before I was like really kind of dragging my left leg, and I think it probably wasn't, even though, like I said, you don't need a lot of hip flexion, you just need that knee to bend, and you need enough for your foot to lift off the floor. So you'll notice that even though, the way you're supposed to walk is you have your foot heel first, like my foot does not hit the heel first on the side, it's still enough to clear the floor and not trip me. So a really important thing to sort of remember as you're practicing walking patterns is that you just pick a couple and you work on those, and then, you kind of expand it beyond that.